guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
And also,
Hey, it's Robin, and
Hi, I'm William, and this is Robin.
and we're from Mystic Novelty Company.
you guys did great. It's okay. I always throw everybody off with it. So here we are back with more guests as promised last week. How exciting! And what a treat to have you both on. I know I've been trying to get you guys on. Well, not just this show. You were supposed to come on People Who Make Stuff, but then we failed at that. So not you guys, but me and Pat O. Just didn't do very good jobs at.
I wouldn't even throw my hat in the ring on that failure. I think I did a pretty good job of that.
Well, I mean,
Whatever.
It's not around anymore, so I'm
Right.
just kidding. It's whatever. You know what? You try things and they don't work, and you move on.
Exactly.
Pato, how was your weekend?
It was all right. The big thing that happened to me was my family went out of town and left me home alone without the dogs.
Ooh,
So yeah, I got to
Risky.
chill out, relax all weekend, except for Saturday night because I went to Rock Island Public House to see at the drive-in Big Money Hustlers.
I did see that you saw that.
Yes, which is the first ICP movie, and St. Clown Posse has two movies, Big Money Hustlers, and then the sequel/prequel, Big Money Rustlers, which is set in the Wild West. And yeah, they were doing Big Money Hustlers on Saturday and Rustlers on Sunday. Unfortunately, I have a grown-up job, so I wasn't able to go to the Sunday night one. But I did go to the Saturday night one, and I have to say, Big Money Hustlers is an excellent piece of cinema.
Did they ever Did they find out how magnets work?
No, that they did not touch upon that in that movie. I think this was before their magnets had piqued their curiosity.
Yeah.
This was released in 2000, so this was when they were still largely ignorant to magnets' existence in the first place. But it was good, man. It was a throwback to Dolomite and the blaxploitation movies of the 70s, and it was really entertaining. I had a really good time with it.
Were
And so
there
did the whole
lots
audience.
of juggalos there?
I don't know who those people were. I mean, I didn't really talk to them, but there was people there. And a friend of mine went on some website called Fago Tracker and found a Meyer of all places. I don't know if she encountered any duende in the bathroom, but tracked down some Fago and got some cotton candy and some strawberry. I had a little bit of the strawberry. It was decent, but I hear the cotton candy was a little bit too sweet, although I did not try it. So.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that was my Saturday. It was exciting. And then Sunday, I spent all day working on me and Daniel Thorndike's new podcast, Y2K Movies. So me and Daniel of the Blue Room Insight podcast, we actually, it's good that we have Robin and Billy on this week because we met in IRL at the Withville UFO Fest. And we hit it off. We became very good friends. We bonded over a deep, non-ironic mutual love for Glenn Danzig, and kind of kept the friendship going offline or online, I guess you would say, and have been texting each other. And we decided to do this thing where every week we're going to talk about movies that are released like today, like from the past couple years. I feel like there's a lot of time and effort being spent on film Twitter and the internet, kind of just pouring over the same old classic horror movies over and over again, talking about Evil Dead 2, talking about Reanimator, doing franchise retrospectives on all the Hellraiser movies and shit. And I am a guy in my 40s. I don't watch movies as much as I used to. So I like the idea of kind of paying attention and celebrating the new classics that are coming out and the stuff from the past 5-10 years that's worth checking out, because I don't know the difference anymore. You know what I mean? I don't have my finger on the pulse, but Danny kind of does. So between the two of us, hopefully we'll get some good conversations going. So
wow, I'm excited. I had no idea. This was a huge surprise to me. What do you mean we?
Well, no, like you said, you talk about, you go back and forth and you kind of have ideas and we start stuff, we stop stuff. This is something that we've been texting each other about probably for like 2 months. And then finally, and God bless Dan, because he's been the cheerleader on this, where he'll text me like every week and a half, like, "Hey, so you want to do this sometime?" Or, "Hey, I had an idea. What if we did like this?" Or, and it's an idea that evolved right after the Withville UFO thing. We started kind of just talking, and the idea started to kind of grow. And it finally was this weekend where we came up with 4 movies. I'm like, let's do a month's worth of shows in one afternoon and just get them done. We did Prey, Nope, Revealer, which is the first episode that dropped this Monday, the 15th. And then we did, I don't know. It'll be a surprise. Oh, Shark Side of the Moon.
It'll be a surprise.
Yeah, Shark Side of the Moon, the Tubi original from Asylum that just hit streaming this week. So we've been talking about it, and we just finally pulled the trigger on it. And it's something that, we all know how easy podcasting is. The whole thing kind of finally came together in the course of like 24 hours.
Wow.
So,
well, congratulations, Pato, on your new endeavor. And,
for starting a podcast with white guys talking about movies, like,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's fucking groundbreaking. Thank God someone finally gave us a voice, right?
Whatever it is that you do in your life, you need to be the biggest, baddest, and the best. And I believe that you are the biggest, baddest, and the best. So I think you'll do great. And of course, if you would like myself on, I'll come on sometimes.
We should do a crossover episode with Monster Radio. We'll find something. I don't know if they make like a werewolf movie or a movie about cryptids or monsters.
That's a good idea.
If I can suggest a movie, so William has a music credit in a movie that our friend made, horror movie.
Oh, what's it called?
The Scrotum 2. But there was 2 Scrotum movies, and
do I have to see the first one to follow the second one?
It probably helps, but
okay.
I recommend both of them.
They should be.
Sure.
I think they're both on Amazon Prime.
But yeah, William's got a song
in Scrotum 2. Yeah.
In Scrotum 2. I have a thank you credit just for being.
Are there 2 scrotums in Scrotum 2 or just one scrotum?
No, it's one scrotum, but there are 2 scrotum movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when did the second one come out?
Not that long ago.
About a year ago.
Yeah. Went to the premiere.
Dude.
And they're both. It's tongue in scrotum.
Oh. Okay.
You guys are the best guests we've ever had. I swear to God. We will, because you guys are responsible for this blessed union happening in the first. You guys are also responsible in a very indirect way from the ICP thing happening, because I found out that Ashley was a juggalo on the drive home from the Withville UFO Fest, and we were talking about it when my buddy Mike was on. We did an episode about the supposed mattress firm conspiracy. My buddy Mike Vanderbilt, who's the curator of the drive-in at Rock Island Public House, was on. We were talking about juggalos, and that's how he got the idea to do this weekend at the drive-in. The ICP weekend was because of my juggalo fascination, which stemmed from us driving home from the Withville. Everything comes back to that Withville UFO Fest. It was legendary.
Well, I had to explain juggalo lore to Pat O because he'd never really understood or realized that it was such a big thing, and he claims that there's no juggalos in Chicago. So
I never came. I never came across any in the wild.
Ashley, do you stab people by any chance?
I'm not a juggalo. Pat O keeps telling everybody I'm a juggalo. I'm not a juggalo. I've been very ever since we started talking about this, I get hundreds of requests from clowns on Facebook all the time, like literal people in fucking clown makeup, and I'm just like, no, you guys.
Hashtag that juggalo life.
And whatever, I don't even know, what do they say, much clown love, I don't even know their phrases. But we have talked about doing vending the gathering of the juggalos now that this has become such a thing for us, which I would definitely still be down to do.
Don't go in there like Tia Tequila and get beat up.
Oh my God, did she really get beat up at the gathering?
That's what we've heard.
There's video of it, yeah.
What? Well, see, that's why I want to go. They hunted Bigfoot this year at the gathering, like for real.
What's his name, like Big Stank or some shit?
But Krayshawn went there and she didn't get beat up.
Oh my gosh. We might be.
That's true.
I think we'll be okay. We'll blend right in. Just put on the clown makeup, chug the Fago or whatever it is they do there. But anyway, how was your guys' weekend? Anything fun or exciting happen for you this weekend?
Like we didn't do anything
fun. No, nothing fun.
Yeah, same. I really didn't do anything either. I've been like trying to watch more things lately just because people seem to like when we talk about things that we watch. But that didn't happen. A new episode of Monster Radio did come out. And it's my favorite episode to date. It's the Flatwoods Monster. So if you guys haven't listened to that yet, head on over to Monster Radio, check it out. We did cover Flatwoods Monster over on this show, but it wasn't me and Pat. It was actually one of Ivy's later episodes. And it was one of the early episodes of the show. So listen to both. Fuck it. You got time, right? You guys aren't doing anything this week. Go listen to both of them. Pato and I also dropped our Hell Year retrospective over on the Patreon. And that's been interesting. Actually, we've gotten some pretty good feedback on it so far. People like the opinion. So
cool.
If that's something that you want to hear, go over there. I also unloaded some kind of an old case that I had with some strange noises that were happening in the skies over Bryan, Texas, over on the Patreon. So there's video, there's picture, all kinds of write-up to read. So again, if you're not subscribed, go subscribe to the Patreon. Give it a month, take in all the content, and then leave. I don't care. At that point, I got your $8. It's fine. But if you like it and you want to stay, I encourage that as well. So that's what I got. You guys want to talk about some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
I got some cool news. So apparently the authorities in Brewster, Ohio are hunting down some rogue kangaroos. So it's yeah, there's actually video of it also. There are kangaroos running around in Ohio right now. It's interesting because Ohio has a history of like these phantom kangaroos, and it's kind of it's a very odd, I don't know if it's a cryptid. I mean, I don't really know what to call it. People have been seeing fucking kangaroos in Ohio for a long time. And so there's these two kangaroos that have popped up. They think one might be a wallaby, but they don't really know because they only ever saw like the one in the video. But people have been reporting a baby with it. So it could be a wallaby and a kangaroo. It could be a wallaby, or it could be a baby kangaroo and just a kangaroo. There are people, like, you can legally keep kangaroo in Ohio.
Yeah, when you Google Ohio kangaroo, one of the first things that comes up is Ohio kangaroo permit.
Yeah, you can have them.
Right. So
this could be just someone's escaped pets. That is likely the case here. I don't think that we have natural kangaroo population in Ohio. But then again, like I said, there have been kangaroo sightings going on here for a very long time, and it's really not something that people talk a lot about. I mentioned the Patreon and kind of, how we have different shows on or whatever. Well, we do a show called Weird World, and eventually when we talk about Ohio, we'll deep dive the Ohio kangaroos a little bit more, but we're still a long ways off from that. So, links in the description there. You can go check out the video if you really want to. It's just a kangaroo crossing the street. It's no big deal in Ohio, whatever. Any comments from the peanut gallery about the Ohio kangaroos?
Well, I was thinking it reminded me of the Enfield, Illinois, Enfield monster, 1973.
Yeah.
That,
some people think that was a type of the same thing.
What was weird about that was like the guy who saw it in his backyard, and he like shot at it and everything. Said it had 3 legs and its eyes glowed in the dark, and it took off. And he they said there was a kangaroo on the loose from the local zoo.
Yeah.
And then this guy was like, "Oh, it's not a kangaroo," because coincidentally, he had actually lived in Australia and owned a kangaroo. So there's a lot of kangaroo stuff going on right at the same time. Yeah.
No, there definitely is. It's very weird. The local authorities are encouraging people that if you see the kangaroo, they brought in a team on, you guys listen to this Wednesday, but today's Monday. They brought in a team today to try to hunt the kangaroo. But if you come across the kangaroos and, don't approach them, they're not typically aggressive, especially because these are probably raised by people. But you still shouldn't approach wild animals. But I'm probably going to go kangaroo hunting this weekend. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, okay.
It's like 3 hours for me. Yeah. I'm going to go catch a roo. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm just going to keep it in my apartment.
You just told everybody.
No. I got to edit that out. Damn.
I had a pair of kangaroos when I was a kid.
Are you just talking about the shoes?
Yeah. Never mind.
Did you have to feed them?
I fed it quarters.
Quarters? Wow. All right. Well, that's Ohio's weird news. This one is kind of something we've tracked for a while. The ivory-billed woodpecker. We talked about this in an earlier episode and how there was a group that was trying to. So the ivory-billed woodpecker is, you might recognize it as Woody the woodpecker. That's what kind he is. They're extinct. And there's been a group that's been trying to prove that they're actually not extinct. They're still around. And this week, they actually released a video to the U.S. Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife group of its drone footage of what they believe to be an ivory-billed woodpecker. And so they are trying to move them from the extinct list to the, critically endangered species list. And we're just kind of waiting on that verdict. But I do have the video. I will, again, post it in the description. It looks like an ivory-billed woodpecker. So that's really neat. I think it's neat that they were able to, something that small, locate kind of a breeding ground for them. Because they've been studying this area in Pennsylvania for a while, thinking that they were there, and they caught it on drone footage, but we can't catch a fucking 9-foot tall, primate in North America. I don't know.
Well, I think it's always good. It's always encouraging when they prove that animals that they once thought were extinct are still alive. Whenever we can kind of grow the biological tree a little bit and show that this stuff does survive, that what we think of, what we know is oh God, I'm really struggling with this for some reason. Actually, why? I'm not stoned. I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. My brain's just not working. No, just that more animals could be out there than we think. You know what I mean? Or that what we write off as extinct or endangered species are actually just, we're not observing them, that they actually exist in the wild. I always think that's kind of cool.
Well, this is classic cryptozoology. I mean, people don't realize that, and I don't know why they don't recognize this, but extinct species having sightings surrounding them, and all these people saying, well, I know it exists because I've seen it, is the exact same thing as what we deal with all. They just don't call it that. Instead, they call it, biology and zoology and things like that. What's really going to be interesting is to see what U.S. Fish and Wildlife does with this footage. Is that going to be enough to classify these things as alive? Because they tell us that that's not enough to classify other things that we have video of as alive. So we're going to wait and see, and it's going to be really exciting. I'm hoping that next week we have some type of update on it. Did you guys have anything to say about the ivory-billed woodpecker?
No, I don't think so. I don't know enough about it, really.
I think that's really cool, though. Like Pat said, anytime we get good news about how something's not extinct, like we thought it was, it's amazing.
Maybe they want us to think they're extinct, because then they'll go extinct if we find out they're not extinct.
What?
That's a good point. People are monsters. That's what they do. I mean, and there's been cases of it's weird, but there's been cases of government cover-ups of things just like that for that reason. Oh gosh, there was one animal. It was a particular type of owl, in particular, and I can't remember what it was. God damn it! But they did lie about them being around for a long time because they thought that it would help the conservation efforts, because you didn't have people trying to tour and go see it and go ruin the area that they live in or whatever. Humans are just destructive. We suck. So I don't blame anybody for trying to keep us away from these things. But also, lots of animals this week. Of course, another video came out of Britain of a big cat, a big old panther that some motorist took. It was off in the distance in a field. And I just, when the fuck is the UK going to recognize that they have a large species of cat that lives in their area? Right? I mean, because there is constant evidence. I mean, again, just like with the woodpecker, the only thing they don't have is an actual body, but there are pictures and videos and sightings and footprints and they just act like, oh, these don't exist here. Well, they do. And there's a lot of evidence to prove that they do. So it's kind of ridiculous. Of course, somebody from, the UK's basically Fish and Wildlife said that, oh, no, they saw the video. They just think it's a regular old house cat. I've seen some big ass house cats before. I've never seen one the size of a dog, but that's just me. I don't know anything. I just have a podcast. I don't know. So.
Yeah, it's the big cat thing I always kind of dismissed as like one of those boring cryptids. But when I was reading Courtney Block's book, the guest that we had on last week, she had a segment in there about the big cats of Britain. And there was something, this anecdote's going absolutely nowhere because I can't remember what she said, but I remember reading it and being like, oh, that makes it kind of interesting to me now. So I think the big cat.
Remember what it was?
No, I can't remember what it was, but I just remember like making a mental note, like maybe you should look into like when I was reading the thing about Aleister Crowley summoning the Loch Ness monster, and I was like, that's a good angle. Maybe I'll look into this Loch Ness monster thing more.
You know, the Wampus cat around in Tennessee here. You heard of that one, right?
Oh yeah, the Wampus cat's a really interesting one. I definitely want to cover that sometime on Monster Radio. We didn't talk about that. We did an episode on cats, just kind of around the paranormal phenomena around cats, and then we kind of covered like big cats, and then of course the Maltese tiger, which is a blue tiger. But we didn't talk about the Wampus cat. I don't know why.
I always root for the Wampus cat. People ignore it, but if it gets a little bigger, we'll start a Wampus cat festival.
We have watched so many creatures.
Yeah, we're monitoring the situation over here.
Make it bigger. Be the pioneers of the Wampus cat.
Might be.
That sounds like a furry suit that you should get. It should be a mascot that you have come out to your festivals. You can buy those things off Amazon. We found out when we did the furry episode.
And we did find that out.
You know what? I should mention this. I'm going to be on that guy's show.
What show?
I don't know when. No, we had Chris Holm. So he came on to talk about furries. He came on our show to talk about furries because he's a furry enthusiast. But he has he's based out of Texas. He's got like a paranormal podcast too. And something that he does is he's a sketch artist. And when people have paranormal encounters, they can go to him and he'll kind of draw what they think they saw, and he works with them. And he wants to, I don't know, I'm supposed to talk to him on Wednesday. Actually, today. So if you're...
Today, yeah.
Like a good podcast would be like a furry and a juggalo.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, well, we already broke that ground.
Furry versus Fago or something like that. And then have shoot topics back and forth.
There you go. How many podcasts can you handle, Pap?
How many what?
Podcasts can you handle?
Oh,
Which one would you
limitless.
be, Pat? Would you be the furry or would you be the juggalo?
I would definitely be a furry if I had to pick between the two subcultures.
Okay.
Just because I don't like clown makeup. I don't like.
It's a hassle.
Pancake. Yeah, and it runs and then smear it all over their thighs. It's just fucking. It's
messy.
My
god.
Whereas if I'm in a big gorilla suit, it's just.
Oh, so you'd be a gorilla. You already know.
Well, no, I mean, we discussed my go-to animal would be wolf.
That's right.
But I already own a gorilla suit, so that's probably how I would get my start.
Do I want to know why you own a gorilla suit already?
Because I'm a filmmaker. Every filmmaker's got that's when my kids joined the Cub Scouts and they had to do like skits and stuff. I was like, guys, Dad's got a costume closet. Like, don't worry about it. Like, I have a collection of monster masks and weird props and shit, and one of them is a gorilla suit, of course.
I have a costume closet too, but I can't wear any of them around my kid. So
you don't bring them to the Girl Scout powwows or whatever you guys call them.
Maybe I should start.
I know, right? Be real popular.
It's I showed up to one of my kids' Halloween parties when she was young, and I was just wearing just this dress, and it's just a skeleton. I mean, it's not crazy or anything, but I was the only parent there dressed up, and I was like, man, I feel really out of place. So anyway, well, that's the news for the week. Let's talk about William and Robin. You guys have been doing a lot lately. You've been doing a lot for a long time, though. Did it all start off with this Mystic Novelty code that you got going on, or?
I guess so.
Yeah. So we started Mystic Novelty in 2019.
Was it that way?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I wrote Saucers Over Appalachia in 2016, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So I guess that's kind of what sort of kicked it off. And we'd been going to Mothman Festival and stuff for years, and I'd been, reading all kinds of stuff about UFOs my whole life, pretty much. But and we'd also done other businesses and stuff together. Like we were selling antiques, and we had an Etsy store where we did like original artwork and stuff like that. And,
so this was pretty natural for you guys to progress into. Then it just kind of combined your
it all came together to that, and into the Mystic Novelty Company, which kind of really now is our main avenue for just whatever we like and whatever we think's interesting, and we kind of make stuff to do with it.
Sure. Yeah. And you guys make the best stuff. I love it always. You've always got great stuff.
Oh, thanks. We got a bunch of new stuff where we're getting ready to premiere that
we've been hard at work
about. Yeah.
Tell me that. Where's it premiering at?
Probably it was going to be Cryptid Bash, but it'll be Mothman Festival.
Oh gosh. So I should bring lots of money. Okay, I'll do that. My daughter loves your soaps, so that's what she uses.
But we have a whole new line of products coming out, so
oh my gosh, that's wonderful. So when did you guys meet each other? I don't know much about. I guess you personally. I just know that you're fellow weirdos. Really,
12 years ago.
Yeah, about 12 years ago. We were both in college, and we met there, and from then on, it was just
ride or die.
Were you guys always mutually weird together, or was one more weird than the other, and the other just kind of followed suit?
Man, you got to be weird to be with either of us. I think
we were pretty mutually weird. Maybe we'd follow each other down different weird avenues, but we had a lot of similar interests from the beginning.
Sure. Okay. And then, well, William, what made you want to write? I mean, why did you go, you know what, I'm going to make a UFO book?
Well, I've been reading about UFOs since I was 6 or 7 years old. And then, I've written a bunch of other stuff before. I used to publish magazines. I had ever since, probably starting when I was in high school, I published fanzines back in the day. And I'd written other things before. So that was my first thing that, was about UFOs.
Yeah, I noticed on Amazon the Mad Gasser book, and I am going to order the shit out of that, and I can't wait to read it because that was always a story that really fascinated me. And the Mad Gasser, that's you, right? I'm assuming that's you.
Yeah. I'm a gasser, but yeah, I did drop the.
No, I'm not trying to get you to confess, but that was a story that always kind of fascinated me because it's so weird, and it's kind of in the same vein as the Spring Heel Jack story.
Definitely. That was one of my favorites too, Spring Heel Jack, and I read about the Mad Gasser, a long time ago when I was a kid, and it was just a blurb. It was one paragraph in a book that was about one of those compendium of strange things type of books. And I remember reading something that Lauren Coleman wrote about it a long time ago. But nobody had ever really written a book about it. And most of what you find on it, if you were to just Google the Mad Gasser, you're going to find it's going to come up about the one in Illinois. But of course, the one in Virginia predates that one by about 10 years. So the Illinois one could have very well been a copycat of the Virginia one. Nobody knows for sure, but it's definitely a unique and strange, sort of true crime type of thing with some weird, great horror movie elements that it would make a really awesome film.
Well, I think I read about. See, now I don't even know which one I'm familiar with because I didn't know that there was two separate incidents.
Yeah.
I think the Mattoon one from Illinois is a little more popular.
Okay,
culture, but I think Botetourt County, which is the one you wrote about, which came first, is almost a little more interesting,
and it lasted a lot longer too.
Yeah.
The one in Mattoon, Illinois, was just a matter of between a week, 2 weeks, or something like that, and then the one in Virginia lasted a couple months. It was it started around Christmas and went all the way through winter.
When I read about that recently, we were researching a show about Havana Syndrome. And I was reading a book about Havana Syndrome and mass hysteria, and they brought that story up and how they thought that the Mad Gasser was an instance of just mass hysteria where somebody reports something one night and then it kind of spreads and it goes from there.
Well, there's a element of mass hysteria to it for sure, just like there is with UFO waves or with with COVID or whatever, any event, you know what I mean? Like anything that scares people, it kind of lights a fire with people. You had the Salem witch trials. Everybody always talks about that for mass hysteria, and the nuns who thought, what was it? The nuns that thought they were cats or something. There's like all kinds of weird stories in history of like strange mass hysterias. But I'm sure there's like in the one in Virginia, in the Botetourt County, like it started in the county, and then over time it spread to the city of Roanoke, which is, obviously the only big city around there, but it spread to there. And by the time it spread to Roanoke, it was kind of just there was really no real evidence. It was mostly people like hearing something in the night or seeing a car drive by and then freaking out, So at that point, it seemed like it went in stages, where there was like an original set of events that were probably a crime perpetrated by a specific person or people. And then there was like copycats of that crime. And then there were just people freaking out,
So how did you make this jump from, I mean, I know the Mad Gasser is kind of a weird one, but you're going from UFOs to true crime, and that's coming from someone that doesn't judge, because we do exactly that on this show, but
whatever else.
You're just interested in both topics, or?
Yeah, just things that I find interesting, basically.
And we've always been big true crime people. We've got a big true crime collection, and
we're collectors of things.
So we're definitely one of our collections, but one of our collections is very heavily true crime based. So.
Sure, I can relate. I understand the collection. I mean, I didn't know if there was anything in particularly high strange about the Mad Gasser. It is a weird case, but I just didn't know if it's because you had both interests or what the deal was. I mean, you should definitely write things that you love, well, not that you're in love with the Mad Gasser, but maybe you are.
And I think one of your themes that you were sort of going with was mass hysteria. Like a lot of what Saucers Over Appalachia was sort of rolled off into mass hysteria.
And that's just one of the themes I always and mass psychosis and things like that. I think it's really interesting. I like cults and things like that. I find really interesting, and weird religious movements and things like that.
Sure.
Do you have a short list for the next book?
I was working on one about. I'm on and off working on about UFO religions.
Ooh, like Heaven's Gate?
No, not the negative stuff where people like kill people or die or anything.
Sure.
But just people who have like maintained and like have continued to do that, and there are different groups. I've interviewed a lot of different people from different groups, and
you have a lot of interviews that just sort of need to. I think COVID sort of threw your groove off a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of got, but I still got. I've got a whole lot. It's
more to do, but
yeah.
But you several interviews with people in it. I mean, I think if you approach a lot of these religions with like sort of like a respect, then they're very willing to talk to you and like want to sort of share what they're about.
Yeah, you don't want to use the word cult. I mean, it has a lot of negative connotations to it, really. Like, because there's nothing really any weirder about having a UFO religion than there is about having any religion, really. So, like,
sure.
I think I just try to talk to people and basically see what their beliefs are and then how they sort of measure up against one another. So
I think that's a good idea, because honestly, anybody that does write about it, I mean, when you mentioned it, the first thing I mentioned was Heaven's Gate, because that is what you think about, and you think about the propaganda and the sensationalism around those things, because people like bad stories, and I don't mean bad like bad telling, but just bad as in scary things that make people look terrible.
Well, usually the only time anything makes the news is if it's bad, so like
right.
You don't make the news for good things. Like what was it the other day? We saw something like an animal that was like that had been saved or something, or Oh no,
a wholesome news story.
Well, like the whales. There was a long time ago it was like save the whales all the time, and now like if you look it up, they did. The whale population is not in trouble anymore. But you never hear people going, "Hey, let's congratulate ourselves on how we saved the whales," or there's a guy out there right now cleaning up the Pacific garbage patch.
Or
you
like,
never see any articles on that.
How many hundreds of hippie communes were there in the late '60s that didn't kill anybody? But the only one you hear about is the Manson family.
Right. That's it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is. I was talking about that the other day about the ozone layer. Remember how that was like such a big deal, and like there was a hole in the ozone layer. Well, now it's not anymore.
Yeah.
I guess. I apparently nobody talks about it.
I'm still using my hairspray.
Right. I mean, it's just not a problem, I guess, or we're just ignoring it. I don't know because nobody writes about it. So
I think my carbon footprint is very similar to the size of Bigfoot's.
Try to be anyway. Yeah, I mean, I think that's neat. Well, I mean, we're not going to pressure you to get on to write your book. We're both artists. We understand.
It takes time. You just got to, inspiration hits. You can jump on it for a while, and then I don't want to be, I don't want to be a hack or anything.
Sure. Well, and you guys are doing so much. I mean, you did this. You guys curated this whole. Why did you curate this whole UFO festival?
Oh yeah, well,
it's something we'd wanted to do for a long time, but we wanted to do it based in somewhere that had a really good story,
and that was in our area,
general area.
And Withville, had one of the biggest UFO waves, and it was. I remember when it was happening, and it was all over the news, and I knew people that saw ones from that, and I had a UFO sighting around that time too, and so, we just really wanted to do something like that was nearby and that had a really good story that had been neglected. Much like the Mad Gasser is another Virginia thing, that's just right up the road from Withville that you don't hear a lot about, and there's a lot of cool things. It's one of the biggest, the Withville UFO wave kind of happened at the same time as the Belgian UFO wave and had a lot of similarities. You didn't really hear a lot about it and the UFOs and stuff until now, and when you're seeing all these things about the rebranding of UFOs as UAPs, now you're seeing like the other day I saw an interview with a pilot that was talking about seeing a sphere inside of a cube that was flying next to his jet, and that's one of the ones that was seen in Withville 35 years ago. You know what I mean?
We're in a wave right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're living that real time and watching it play out with the government being involved. Well, they were before, but with them admitting that they're involved this time. So we're watching it happen. It's interesting because one thing that you hear a lot of investigators and ufologists talk about is anywhere between the years 1965 and 1968, right? All this stuff happened. It was the craziest time in history, except not really. When you really start kind of chasing those timelines and looking back, I mean, these things never really stopped and started. When we talked about the flap, in Withville, I just mentioned I didn't really think there was a flap so much. Not that people weren't seeing anything. It's just that they had somebody to finally report it to, and it just caught fire. Some of these things catch on, and so people kind of become aware of it for a minute, and then they're bored with it, and then it's over. And I think that's, personally, I think that's what happened, and why this seems so large. It's not because there aren't mass amounts of UFO sightings happening. There are. It's just that, again, they had someone that they could report it to, and it was kind of fun for a while.
Well, like the 1973 one, that Saucers Over Appalachia is about, which it's just about our region during that time, but I researched the whole thing for it, but I wanted to write about the specific area. So, like, really, when you look at it, that's really it's a good example of like the anatomy of a UFO flap. Like it kind of it starts on the West Coast, and it really like moves across the entire country from the West Coast, and you can just really go month by month in newspapers, and you'll see nothing until like October here. But like in California, it was like the beginning of the year, and then in the around Colorado, it was like March or something, and it just moved like month by month across the country like that, and that's kind of the way they do a lot of times, and then you just have, it depends on what happens in that specific area, because really on the East Coast and in the South, the Southeast, like there was you don't hear anything about the crazy stories that happened around here and the UFOs that landed in people's yards and tried to abduct children and things like that. But
the flying burning houses, like that was insane.
And what you do hear about though is Pascagoula, like that. Usually, like one thing will kind of catch people's imagination, like Mothman in that period you're talking about, like 66, 67, like that. That's one that really caught the imagination because they had a great author write a great book about it,
Right. They had somebody that told the story, and they told it in an effective way. But yeah, if you really start chasing down the rabbit hole, and that's what I found anyway. I guess I can't speak for anybody else, but once I started chasing down the rabbit hole, I realized that it's a rabbit hole for a reason. It just doesn't end. There's not a good stopping point for it, because these things just never, that's what, when I give my Mothman presentation, it's about that. I'll give the history of the Point Pleasant flap and talk about it, and then talk about how, and that was it. It was over, right? The bridge collapsed. It was over. Except not really, because here's all this that says otherwise, but just nobody talked about that.
Yeah, it just made it made a fitting end to the book, though,
It did. It definitely did. Yeah, it was effective. They made a whole movie about it and everything.
Oh man, the movie was terrible. You talk about a terrible movie.
We're best friends now. Some people come on the show and we'll talk about it, and they'll be like, "Oh, I love that movie," and I'm like, "No, it's terrible."
People who didn't read that book at all.
Right. I know. No. There's no Mothman in it. No.
Yeah, they messed everything up. They had all kinds of great opportunities, You read that book and it's just so visual, and John Keel writes such a great way. It really is, it has all this imagery and all these, all the weird guys that were working on the telephone lines wearing overalls and things.
Yeah.
And then the orbs floating over the river when he'd move his flashlight and they would follow the flashlight, all this stuff. They don't include any of that, it's like
none of that.
And the Indrid Cold thing, it's like just to totally ruin that,
It's terrible. Well, yeah, when we had Tanya, and I talked to Tanya a lot when we had her on the show. She's really upset. They're still really upset about that.
Yeah.
They're just not going to let that go, which, I don't blame them. But, yeah, they did a terrible job, and nobody's ever tried to, do it justice. And now we've got, and there's getting ready to be a found footage Mothman movie come out. I think it's found footage. I don't even know. It's some scary Mothman movie, and I'm just like, oh,
leave
guys.
Mothman alone. Somebody should, Visitors from Lanulos movie.
That would be really cool. And then, they go to the planet and just everybody's completely naked, and it's great.
I love the contactee movement, and Woody Derenberger was a very contactee-like guy,
Oh yeah,
he was real similar to like a George Van Tassel or a Adamski or.
Yeah, he really embraced it. He really just went full on with it.
What's the guy that wrote From Outer Space to You? Like another one of those contactee guys that they all had a very similar type of story, which was, I love that with the Nordic beautiful alien women that fly you around the solar system and show you around and stuff.
It's very romanticized. I like the Derenberger case a lot. Yeah, because Tanya now, who has a totally different life, than her father, still goes on to share the story. Knowing what her dad went through, still goes on to share the story. Like, hey, this is the thing, and still has it's interesting to see, because in the Lanulosians, I think is what they're technically called, in their culture, women are they're not looked down upon. They're just very much like, how women used to be here. They're just not as respected. They're not allowed to leave the planet, things like that. And then Tanya, a woman in America, still says that, yes, that's the case, which just, I don't know, gives it all the more credibility, to me.
Well, it also reminds me of the Hollow Earth people. There's a lot of different Hollow Earth stories that are real similar like that, where they have these entire societies that they describe in great detail, that are enclosed inside of the earth.
Yeah, we've talked about covering that. Eventually, we'll cover it on the show. Because
I have a massive reading list, and the Ray Palmer stuff is, it's definitely on there. I would like to really do a deep dive on that.
You know John Sims, Simsonian.
I don't know John Sims. No.
So look him up. That's an Ohio guy. He's buried in Ohio.
Oh, well, I should definitely look him up.
Yeah, there's a big. He has a big statue, or like a big obelisk at his grave up there.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm definitely going to have to look that up.
Very big Hollow Earth guy from the 1800s.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't deep dived Hollow Earth yet, pun intended, but I plan to.
Yeah, it's yet.
No, not yet. It's popular. I mean, people really have been talking. Even like we did I said Monster Radio. We did the Flatwoods Monster episode, and we do a live premiere of it on YouTube every Sunday. And people were on there saying, "Well, how do we know this wasn't from within?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. There was a spaceship and stuff."
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
I mean, she could have came out and she went for a joyride and crashed. I don't know what Braxy was doing in West Virginia, but she was there and we talked about it.
So. Maybe some of these UAPs you're seeing go into the water.
Yeah, and then they've been doing that for a long time, really. Like, what was that one up in, was it Sag Harbor, maybe back in the day? That one that they would go underwater up there off the East Coast, Northeast.
I had somebody. I mean, I've gotten reports of the thing of like USOs and things coming in and out of water. But I had somebody that was interesting because they told me about how they were a young kid with their father and they were fishing in somewhere, some lake, some big lake somewhere, and they had came across a craft in the water and they could see it was lit up and they could see like the outline of it lit up, and his dad got very scared, so they left. Of course. But what was weird about this was that this was somebody that I was talking to who did not know what I did somehow, didn't know what I did. So they weren't coming to me to share a story like people typically come to me to share a story. They just completely out of the blue was telling me about this encounter that they had as a child. So those are really fascinating stories. A lot of people think that they, either live within the earth or they have a base within, under the water. The water would be a great place.
Well, I heard somebody mention. I was watching something a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember who it was now, but they mentioned something I thought was a really great, it's a great story if it's not true, but
sure.
It would be like, what if these UAPs, the orbs and the little pill-shaped things and the ones that zip around real fast and go back in the water and stuff, what if that is leftover technology from a past civilization that was here, and the civilization is all dead, but these are just their little robots, their little drones, and they're still alive, because they're not physical or they're not biological, so they're just like, they just live forever and they're just going around doing whatever motion that they were set in motion to do in the beginning,
That's a very neat concept. That's really cool. I've never. Well, we've played with the idea of course, grays being like worker bees, not actual beings, but they're doing their job and maybe they're mechanical or something. So it's not like that's a faraway concept. I could buy that. I'd buy that for $1.
I mean, even if they aren't inhabited, even if we're just finding this technology and there's kind of like this global arms race to find this leftover stuff, and we're trying to grab it whenever we can and figure out how it works and what it does. And different people who have different countries have different pieces of the puzzle depending on what they're finding in their own backyard. I think that's super interesting.
Oh, then I heard somebody say they were Nazis from the future and that Nazis had learned to time travel. So the Nazis time traveled away after World War II, but they made a deal with Eisenhower, Truman, I think it was, that said that they could come and abduct people here in exchange for technology. So that it's actually Nazis time traveling back in time from their future home, abducting people from our time.
Now I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm not on board with that one.
I just don't want to live in a world with time traveling Nazis. I don't know.
I think sometimes people try too hard to develop a unified theory of everything, where they just throw all the things in one pot and hope that it'll somehow work. And that would be nice. It would be nice if we could somehow lump all this phenomenon together and figure out one explanation that kind of ties it all, but I don't know.
They probably also created Bigfoot, and
I was going to say it's Nazi Sasquatch from the future.
It's definitely Sasquatch from the future.
They live on the dark side of the moon.
That's why we can't take a picture of them, because they have their cloaking, their predator cloaking, and they can just disappear. I mean, that's just what they do. There are a lot of very interesting theories out there, but I say it all the time. If any of us had it right, then the rest of us would be out of a job. So, I don't know if that means that any of us are any closer to the truth. I hope that at least one of us is kind of getting it right somewhere out there. But for the most part, gosh, all these theories, I mean, they're usually pretty far away shot in the dark and have any other chance of being real as anything else. I don't think we can time travel. I love time traveler stories. They're one of my favorites. But I don't think it's possible, just because if you were to time travel, you would go from a third dimensional being to a fourth dimensional being. But I guess it could happen. I mean, why couldn't we evolve dimensionally like we do, physically, biologically currently?
Well, you never time travel with that attitude.
That's true. That's true.
We do like time travel stories, though. John Titor.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah,
love that story. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good story.
What was the other one from England? The guy that had the computer. It was a similar.
Is this the one you sent me not that long ago?
Yeah, they were talking back and forth to somebody from the 1600s or
but
something.
They had all the language wrong and stuff. Yeah.
But the John Titor thing is pretty crazy. There's a John Titor too, and if he hears this, he will sue us.
He does follow us on one of our Instagram accounts. I can't remember which one.
He's very litigious.
Does he really?
He's very litigious.
I think it might be our personal one.
I believe he thinks that he kind of owns the story of John Titor, but he just kind of came along many years after. I don't think it's John Titor, unless John Titor went back got his IBM computer or whatever, went back and then came back again and had to get an iPhone or something.
Well, John Titor said that, he had all those predictions, and he said, well, they probably didn't come true because he's from there's a different timeline. So this is probably John Titor from a different timeline.
Yeah, it could be. And I'm John. No, never mind.
There was one gentleman that I tried to reach out to, because what will happen is like this, I'll come across some phenomena and I'll start researching it, and then it's crazy. I go and I look on Facebook, and we're always friends on Facebook, always. And this guy was like calling into Coast to Coast and was talking to Art Bell about how he had invented time travel, except he needed to raise the funds to purchase generators in order to build the machine. He had built a small enough machine, and he had teleported like a screw from one spot to another. This man actually served time in jail because he stole generators from the local utility company. And so he goes on Art Bell's show. He starts raising money. People are sending him money. He finally goes back on. He goes, you know what? I'm ready to show the machine. Come to this address at this date and time, and I'll be there, and I'm going to time travel. And then he just fucking disappeared. Nobody ever heard from him ever again.
Time travel.
Except for me, because I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Hey, would you rather have a time machine or a teleporter?
I'd rather have a teleporter.
I'm going time machine.
Time machine.
You going time machine? Well, that depends.
Does your time machine, are you just going back in time in wherever you are? Because that's my problem.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to transport it. You can't go back to New York 1812 if you're sitting in Tennessee. You got to take the shit to New York and then crank it up.
I would think that, let's just say for this thought experiment, that it's some kind of personnel device where it teleports your body. It's not a gate that you walk through.
More like the Voyagers TV show from the 80s where they had the little handheld thing.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a good call out. Yeah.
Something that moves you. There you go. Something that moves you personally, and that's not stationary, because it gets too problematic with, well, what's there before, what's there in the future? Am I going to teleport? And that's the exact reason why I don't want to do teleportation, is because of all the horror stories and stuff like Event Horizon or the Philadelphia experiment, where people
you come crazy or something on the other side.
Yeah. So I don't want to do that. But I'll go be a cowboy for a weekend.
Yeah. But then what if you come back? As long as there's not kind of one of those situations where, if I come back to this time, to my time and everything, not that it's rad or anything, but if I were to come back to this time, that does this exist for me, or am I going to come back and there be a me here and stuff?
True.
Well, into all that,
So, oh my God! So my wife watches. One of our books and movies that we kind of bonded with early in our relationship was The Time Traveler's Wife, and it was a book that she had read, and very early on in our relationship, and then they turned it into a movie with Eric Bana, and it was a movie that we saw early in our relationship in the theater and stuff, and they just rebooted it. I think HBO did or something for it, and now it's a TV series. And it's about a guy that gets displaced through time and he bounces around and stuff, right? So he goes back, but he runs into himself at different phases. And his wife or his romantic interest like knows different versions of him. She knows teenage, let's say his name's Carl. She knows teenage Carl. She knows 50-year-old Carl. She knows whatever, right? And I guess in the TV show, he blows himself. Like when he's a teenager, he goes back to when he's a teenager, and the dad walks in on the two teenage versions of the time traveler's husband. Fucking. And I don't, when you talk about running into yourself in time travel, I don't think that's what I would immediately go to.
I know it's interesting that the author of that was like, you know what I would do. Yeah.
Well, no, it was written by a woman. That was not in the book, and it was not in the first movie.
Yeah, that's like kind of like Anne Rice had a very big fascination with gay sex, male gay sex.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those Sleeping Beauty books. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but
yeah, and her vampire books are all like it's like as gay as it can be.
They're all gay, yeah.
but they're not having actual sex, but it's clearly like she's got a real fascination or whatever.
Yeah. She, and then she tried to backpedal into Christianity and was like, no, I never said any of that. Or, she was just way all over the place. But yes, she definitely had some kinks to work out, I think.
Hey, rest in peace, though. She just died kind of recently, and she was a great writer.
She did. And, I'll tell you, I ate those books up as a teenager, so.
Oh, yeah. Sleeping Beauty was very formative to my development as a...
I believe it. But if you could have so let's say you have your handheld time traveling device. What if you could so I would take the time traveling device if I could hold on, if I could touch things and take it with me.
Oh yeah, like you just hold hands with somebody and they go with you,
Well, just you could take a person or basic things like penicillin. Or
you can take what you can carry now. You can't you can't just start time traveling baggage.
Take a whole hospital with you.
You can take a carry-on. You can take a backpack full of essentials.
You just talked about smuggling people. Now you're limiting it to one bag.
I'm just saying.
Well, that's true. That's true. I don't know. Well, maybe it weighs the soul instead. I don't know. Like I said, it was like a weight limit.
Mine will only hold a certain weight limit to that. I can either take a person or I can take a nice mid-size carry-on.
See, and this is why time travel doesn't exist, because you have inconsistent rules.
I have consistent rules. I invented it.
Well, I guess if you invent time travel, then you get to choose the rules. So whoever invents it first gets to decide.
John
I think that's fair game. I think that's fair game. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So what do you guys, so you're gonna continue the UFO festival. What else do you have planned? Do you know yet? Or are you just kind of winging it like the rest of us? Because I have no idea what I'm doing, but maybe you guys have an idea of what you're doing.
We've just been working really hard on our new line of stuff for Mystic Novelty Company, and we've got we're kind of launching several new products at once, so it's going to be at Mothman Festival. So that's pretty much taking up most of our time, and then we're going to gear up for the next year's Withville UFO Fests. Towards the end of this year, we'll start kind of hammering out who the speakers will be and things like that.
And then we're hoping to, probably not next year, but maybe the next, we're hoping to start another festival in sort of the Sevierville, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area of Tennessee. So we're sort of gearing up for that one. That one doesn't have a story tied to it, but we'd like to do a UFO.
We're doing a different type. It's gonna be a different type of thing. It's not gonna be like it'll be unlike any UFO festival you've been to.
Sure, I'm excited for that. I can't, because you guys did a great job with this one. I mean, there was an awesome turnout.
It was a great location. It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, we're super happy with it.
We're really thrilled with it. Well, thank you guys for coming and being part of it. We're just thrilled with the way it turned out.
Yeah, everybody seemed to have fun, and the speakers were really good, and everybody, they had a full house the whole time. Everybody that spoke did, and the vendors seemed to do really well, and the people in town liked it.
That's one thing we weren't sure about.
They really
it. It was really well received. I mean, my favorite part was going to the brewery afterwards and having locals tell me about just their experiences growing up with the story, and how, this kind of changed that for them, and how they're super excited because they had never had anything like this before. I mean, that was wonderful.
I think it's cool. I mean, to have it, it's kind of, it's, and Danny, Gordon, it's like, to him, he really, liked it because it was sort of validated it, because back when he was talking about it, in 1990 or whatever, and the unsolved mysteries and stuff, this was still like very much ridiculed, and only in recent years, with where the government has come out, now you have like big name physicists and things like Michio Kaku and people like that are, no longer making fun of it, and they're kind of like taking it seriously and like saying, oh, well, what is this, even if they are acting like it's the possibility is probably technology from China or technology from Russia or something like that. It's like, obviously that's not the case, because it's the same stuff that people were seeing 50 years ago, 60 years ago, you know what I mean? It's not new stuff, it's just now they're not ridiculing people who report it now,
Right, exactly. Well, I know Danny Gordon was talking about this was going to be his last event. Do you know if it might have changed his mind to have seen the turnout and seen the support?
I think it did. I think he wants to do it again next year.
So he's already called us and wants to start planning next year's event.
Good. That's great. No, that's good.
We've got an open invitation every time because.
Sure.
So we're getting together with him next month and going to start planning next year's event.
Yeah, that's his baby. Yeah. I mean really,
When the first time we talked to him and we called him on the phone, he was like, I don't speak anywhere anymore, but I'll do this one because it's about Withful.
It was like a movie or something.
Yeah.
We're
yeah, it was like, and then it was like, he was
basically.
like very skeptical of it, and like what, a little like holding us at arm's length. And then as the festival planning went on, he was like calling us every week, very excited about it. Like,
well,
we became good friends with him, and
because you get real defensive, you build up a lot of
sure,
because of people, trying to, make fun of you or portray it in some kind of weird light, or try to make.
Yeah.
Try to like, cash in on you or something like that. And that's not what we were trying to do at all. We were just wanting to have have something that really just sort of celebrated it and let people come together and tell their stories and stuff. Because that's one of the things that we liked about, when we started going to like festivals, Mothman and Kecksburg and all these different Hopkinsville and all these places that we've been, like, every time you go to one of those, whether you're a participant just walking around or whether you're a vendor, you hear so many stories from people, and it's a lot of times it's people that like never told their story to anybody, really, because they're for fear of like being labeled crazy or something. So you'll hear like stories from like little old ladies that'll, that they finally feel like this is a place where it's like, oh, it's these people aren't going to make fun of me about it, and I think it's cool to have that, especially have it in a place where all that happened and, all these people are still around, I remember when it was happening,
Right. Yeah. It's not that far back in the past that, well, of course you time traveled there. And so you got to experience it firsthand, but
well, I'm also old.
Well, it's a testament to the healing power of community, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
you definitely changed the trajectory of this guy's life because you threw this festival, and it let him find the acceptance or understanding or audience that I think, because he was a journalist.
Oh, yeah.
And he was trying to tell a story, man.
Yeah.
That was it. The story came to him. He didn't go looking for the story. The story fell in his lap and he ran with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, if that phone didn't keep ringing, he wouldn't have kept writing about it.
Yeah.
And it kind of, in some ways, it may have bit him on the ass and left a bad
caused
taste
him
in
a lot
his
of
mouth
problems back then, and
yeah. But now it's because of the fest and because of the, you bringing all these people together. It added a nice epilogue. Not that the guy's going to die tomorrow or anything, but no, it's a nice epilogue to the story.
Bookend kind of situation. Really, I like it. I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's why these events are so important because, like I said earlier in the show, me meeting Daniel and getting to meet him, and now we're doing the Y2K movie thing, or me spending 5 hours in a car with Ashers and finding out she was a juggalo. This is good stuff comes out of these events.
Yeah,
way more than me and Ashers were kind of talking about horror movie conventions and stuff before the show started, and I never really got into those. Even though I'm a filmmaker and I make shitty horror movies, and my friends make shitty horror movies, I still never wanted to do that thing. But this thing, I feel a lot different about. I feel like this is actually, I don't want to say it's like group therapy, but there's an element of that because we're all these weirdo fringe people that are coming together. And this isn't just about getting a Lance Hendrickson autograph or taking my picture with some extra from season 3 of The Walking Dead. This is about coming together. And this is where I got your book, and it was an amazing book. It was one of the best books I read this year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, dude, you're an excellent.
It's one of those things where I was just saying, about how if I had a time machine, I wouldn't come back to this time because it's terrible. But there are horrible things about it. You got your COVID and you got your crazy political situations, or you have, this and that are awful things. But at the same time, you never had that type of thing in the past where people could have these weirdo conventions and nobody, bats an eye. That didn't exist 30 years ago. That didn't exist 50 years ago. You just basically had to keep it to yourself if you had some strange interests,
And what I'll say about these festivals that you don't even get off the internet is that sometimes, and I'm sure you guys can attest to this, UFO cryptid people, sometimes a little hard to deal with on the internet. But in person, people are really friendly.
Right. Yes, it's true. No, it really is. I was talking with Kinsey Gleason one time, just talking about how I think it was more last year, and it was in between Cryptid Bash and Cryptid Con. And we were just both having such a rough time just in general in our lives, and how basically it was just looking forward to these events that just carries you through sometimes. Because it's just, not only is it good for the people that experience this stuff to be able to have that community where they're not chastised for the things they've lived, but it's good for just us because it's important. It's just it's very nice to be in good company, especially because most of us within our regular lives, just as regular everyday people, are black sheep. And so we can come together with other people and just kind of, bond over the fact that we're all fucking weird. That's beautiful. So it is really nice. And I'm glad you guys have started doing these things. Again, obviously you're good at it. Whatever you do in the future, I think it's just going to continue to grow, with these festivals and things, because that was great. Withville was a wonderful, people missed out. If they didn't go, they missed out.
Well, so
you can come next year. Yep.
They can go next. Exactly. Exactly. And see what it's about, because it was, it was probably one of the best events I'd been to so far. Wow. But I agree that it helps these people. When I did the Erie, Pennsylvania event, it was kind of a different situation. I've spoken at events before. This was a little different than that because it was me getting on a stage in a talk show style setting, interviewing people about their encounters. And there was an hour blocked out in the day where we weren't. So of course, everybody that came up, I already knew who they were. I already knew their stories. We already kind of talked about it beforehand, right? It wasn't staged, but there was some readiness there. But there was an hour of time carved out where what we would do is offer anybody that was attending to come and share their stories. And people did. At first, they were kind of like hesitant about it, but as like other people started sharing, then it just kept happening. And then even afterwards, standing at my table, people were coming up, well, I had this experience, or whatever. And I think it is it's very healing for them to be able to unload that onto somebody who's heard much weirder stories than they can even imagine. So
well, like that makes me think about when I did the Mad Gasser book. I did a lot of podcasts and I did a lot of speaking engagements for that, and some of the ones that I did, one of them I did in Botetourt County, and a lot of the people there had there was some really old people there, that they remembered it from when they were little kids or something. Their parents were people that were players in the book, and
wow.
So we had a lot of, instead of like it being like it was a great talk because we did it at the library, and was it in Fincastle, the library?
Mm-hmm.
And then, instead of it turning into like a Q&A type of thing or whatever at the end, it was really like this really conversation like that went on for a long time, between all these people telling their stories and stuff.
People were able to give us great information. Like we had gone out and tried to visit some of the sites that we'd read about in the 1930s newspapers, but the names had changed, and they were like, oh, right. Well, this street changed to this name, and this street changed to this name, and the people that owned this farm, it's now called this.
Nobody who would have known that. That's not going to be published anywhere. That's just like
right.
That's from those people. So it was really, and they hadn't got to talk about that to anybody, their whole lives.
Right. Right. And it just kind of, and I tell people that there's shit that you can't Google. You just can't. And you get it from the people, that you're talking to. I mean, it's crazy. I tell people all the time when I go to things like normal things, parent teacher conferences, when I go to like a kid's birthday party with my 10-year-old, I start talking to their parents. It is always kind of weird because one of the questions that people ask you as an adult is, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
And then, of course, I tell them, I'm a Fortean investigator. What does that mean? I just, study things like Bigfoot and UFOs and ghosts. And it's always awkward at first because I'm always like, uh-oh, here it comes. I always preface it. I'm like, well, it's going to get weird. But, and I tell them, I have yet to have anybody that's like, oh, that is fucking weird. You're fucking weird. Leave. Usually they start telling me either they had something that happened to them or they knew somebody that had something happen, and they start telling me that story.
Well, what's weird is the other day in town here, 3 miles from our house, I got behind a guy on the road who was a ghost hunter, and I didn't know him.
I had a bunch of ghost hunting stickers on the back of
his tag said ghost something or another, like ghost 123 or something, and he's like, he had paranormal investigator, he was in it, And I was like,
know who he is.
I was like, how do I not know this person?
And you have to be best friends.
People moved in across the street and 3 houses down from me, and they have a Misfits flag hanging from their front porch, and where people would have an American flag or a Bulls flag or something.
They got Jersey.
Yeah, they got the Crimson. They got the Crimson Ghost, and I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? Who's gonna move in? Who? Every time I walk past, I just want to go up and knock on the door and just be like, "Where'd you go to high school?"
What was Bobby Steele when he answered the door?
What you do is you go and buy a bigger Misfits flag, put it on your.
Yes.
Oh yes.
That's a good.
I like the way you think, Robin. Exactly. No, that's what you do. That's how you handle that one.
Maybe get a black flag.
Yes. That's how you make friends. I don't know. I think that we should be more so I was at the popcorn store. It was a gourmet popcorn store, and I took my daughter to it. And she was not a lot younger. She was just younger. And another little girl and her parents walk in. It was such an awkward situation. And the little girl and my daughter start talking, and one of them says to the other, "Hey, you want to be friends?" And then the other one's like, "Yeah." And then me and the adults start kind of laughing about it's so easy to make friends as a kid. Why don't we do that? Just well, yeah, you want to be friends? And then we're just friends with people. And then like that was like the in for us to be like, okay, what's your phone number? Let's go have coffee. And nothing ever came of it. We just got our popcorn and left. Super awkward, but
you addressed the awkward. And then just did nothing.
Didn't follow through, and those two people could have been my soulmates, both of them, and now I'll never know. But
no, when I deal with like my kids, the parents of like my kids' friends, like they always seem like adults to me.
Yeah,
you ever notice that? Like there's some like other parents that are like your age or something, or they just seem youthful, or they seem like, like your peers, but then the vast majority of them just seem like adults. And and I'm fucking 41 years old.
Like your parents, right?
Yeah, and I'm still like, oh, hey, Mr. Genevieve, how's it going? Like,
I called off work the other day at I have a regular person job too, and I called off work, and I was like feeling like terrible. I am terrible at calling off work. Like I feel bad about it, and so I was like in hiding. I'm like, I can't get on social media. I can't do anything. I had to like verbally say to myself, like, I'm a fucking adult. Like I'm allowed to not work today.
do you think they're gonna stalk you like that though?
I guess, which they're not going to, and they don't care. It doesn't matter. But I don't know. It's just that, and maybe it's just I'm not old enough to have hit that point yet in my life. But I don't know. I've always felt that way. Of like extreme guilt about doing things like that, and maybe that's just
not
me.
Findoming for a day. That's what I think you feel. Yeah. Just that vacuum of not wrestling people's money from them.
I tell Pat all the time, I'm not rich enough to Findom. But
that's exactly what you do. You're just a professional Findom.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, if it gets me some sales from the show, then I'll take it. But anyway, yeah. So what were we talking about before all this? Oh my gosh, I don't remember. Oh, just people sharing their stories. I'm really glad that you guys were able to do that for Danny, because one of the things that some of the locals were talking about was just how, they grew up and they always like perceived this person as that's crazy Danny, and it's awesome that, they were able to take in these stories and really hear it from the man himself and change that perspective.
Yeah, it's a shame that, that he had to go through a lot of that because, he's just a guy that was in a weird position, at a really weird time, and he just happened to be the central hub of which it was all kind of rotating around, and fascinating. But I'm glad he feels a little better about it now that he's at least got to tell the story and to the best of his memory and everything, and he's got to republish the book, which was good.
Yeah,
that's available now. People can get it from Amazon now instead of because before it was like that was like $150 book, if you could find it. But now you can get the new edition of it, and it has some additions and corrections and things in it too. Like it's been updated and stuff. So him and Paul worked together and did a revised edition of it. So I don't know if you got to get a copy of it at the event, but it's he's still got those for sale and stuff.
I did. I keep doing so awful. Actually, William, I have to buy both of your books, but I'm a book snob and I won't buy books unless they're signed. But then I was like saying this, when were we talking about this, Pat? I think when you had first read Flying Saucers Over Appalachia, and I was like, I don't have any of his books, and it's because every time we're at an event together and I finally have a free time to go to your table, you're not there.
Yeah, I can only handle it for so long before I have to go to the bathroom.
I'm the customer service person, and then he wanders off.
Yeah, no, I get it. I have such a hard time just standing at the table. Like I'm not good at that. But then like I always end up like I'll walk away for a minute and then I get caught up talking to somebody and then that's an hour or whatever, which I don't hate. I love that part of it. That's my favorite is the people.
Plus to be the one that goes to get the food and stuff,
Oh yeah, you get to be the you get to be the maid service and the chauffeur.
Running, go to get the coffee, go to get lunch,
You're like, I'll do it.
Yeah, I volunteer for this. I'm that kid that raises their hand in the school,
That's fine. Hey, like I said, I don't blame you one bit. But the next time, well, actually, I'm going to be at Mothman, and I'm not there. I'm there as a spectator, which I'm happy.
He keep leaving me at Mothman.
Yeah, so. I was going to say, surely you're going to be at Mothman,
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
The first Mothman Festival since the whole pandemic situation.
It is, and so it's going to be just absolutely insane. I've only been to one Mothman Festival. It's crazy. A lot of people, but I went. The first time I went was in 2019, and that's when I became an investigator. And then there was no more Mothman Festival. I went, of course. We went last year.
Yeah,
there wasn't a festival.
We went down too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys were there. You guys went to the TNT area.
Yeah, we went.
Yeah, with the Men in Black guys.
Yeah. We went to that was the first time we met Tanya, so we had to leave. I wanted to go, but we had to leave to talk to her, so which was worthy. So that was cool. That's right. You guys were there. Yeah, it was a festival, but it was not a festival.
We had our own festival, basically.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And I was like, I'm not missing this for the world. Like, let's go down there. And we did. I don't know if anybody went down in 2020, but we were in West Virginia a lot, but we didn't go Mothman Festival weekend. So I don't know what they probably didn't do anything, honestly, because, COVID was heavy at that point in time, I guess, or whatever. And so, but yeah, I'm excited to go this year. So I'll definitely see you guys there. And I'm going to come hunt you. I'm just going to hang out at the table until William's back so I can buy your books.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't have gone far. The town's like 2 blocks long.
Yeah,
so
true.
it shouldn't be too bad. So that's my plan. Is that your guys' next event? Is Mothman?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's much happening in between now and then. Did you guys went to Cryptid Bash this year, right?
We didn't. I got sick, so we had to skip it. Unfortunately.
Oh, wow. No, that's okay. I didn't either, so it's obviously I would have known that you weren't there. That's okay. There's next year. That one's doing really well too.
They're killing it. It's great. Yeah. We were really sad to miss it this year.
There's so many. I mean, there's been so many events popping off, and they're doing so well. And I don't know if it's just because people were motivated by staying at home or what the deal was there. But we want to start one. I want to start one in Ohio. I just don't know. It's a big deal, so we'll see.
And this computer might very well die here in a second.
Okay, we'll wrap up. Pato, did you have anything that you wanted to?
Yeah, just one last quick question. Was the Scrotum directed by Troy Prater?
What's that?
The director of the Scrotum, Troy Prater?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure it's the right one.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
feel like there's probably not more than one.
Yeah.
Well, you never know.
There probably will be. There'll be like the ball sack and stuff like that. You know how like it was with Gremlins. You had Critters. You had Munchies.
Munchies. Yeah. Wow, Munchies.
The director of this big cryptid fan from West Virginia. He's from West Virginia originally.
He used to be in Blitz Kid. You know that.
Wow.
That band that the bass player, big cryptid guy. He plays with I think he still plays with Doyle, right, from the Misfits, or he has his own thing now too.
I don't know who you're talking about. How do I not know who you're talking about?
Blitzkin was after when Jerry Only and Glenn Danzig did. There's a whole Misfits.
It's like it's a band that's from West Virginia that they used to play around here, and I had a band that we played with them a couple of times, and but there was but Troy was in that band later on, and then the bass player from that band, Argyle Goolsby is his name. He went on to play with Doyle, and now I don't think he has his own thing. But I remember when I first saw that, they first found that the original Flatwoods Monster, that drawing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one that was published in the newspaper back in the day. When they first found that, that's where I first saw it at. He was a picture of him with it. So I was like, oh man.
I thought it was Seth Breedlove.
That was after, yeah.
What instruments do you play?
Me, guitar.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's my last question.
He'd love to talk about it. He just got a new guitar. He's staring at it when you ask that question.
He's looking over like, do I mention it? Do I talk about it?
He would love to, but
She said, I think that's wonderful. Are you guys ever going to get into like any type of well, you do the author thing, but are you ever going to get any other types of media in the cryptid world?
No, I don't know. Just see whatever
rule
happens,
anything out. Yeah.
Whatever happens.
Sure. I love that. Well, I love that. I think we're all doing that. We're just like, hey, we're just gonna throw all these things on the wall, see what sticks.
Sure.
Whatever I inspired to do,
Sure, absolutely. Okay, well, good to know. All right, well, I don't think I have anything else. Do you guys want to share where people can find your social medias? I'll post a link, but I guess you're supposed to say it or people don't know
you
to
can
look
find
for
us at Mystic Novelty Co. on Instagram. We have the same shop name on Etsy, which is Mystic Novelty Co. If you want to check out our festival, it's Withful UFO Fest on Instagram, and our website is withfulufofest.com.
And in books, you can look up
Amazon or they're on Etsy as well.
Sauces Over Appalachia and Mad Gasser are both on Amazon and Etsy. And then we're going to be at Mothman Festival, and you'll know us by the big sign that says Mystic Novelty Company.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for finally coming on. I'm sure when you guys make more stuff, we'll have you back on to talk about the stuff that you make.
Yeah, it's fun. It was great being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. Well, with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.